Unscripted.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of PD and PDubs Unscripted. PDubs, good to be with you here.
Hey man, good to be in the house and having a good day today, and hope everybody's having a good one as well.
Yeah, it feels a lot different than one of the last times we recorded when it was like we were talking about the snow and the ice, and now It's like all that snow's melted and it's 41 degrees out when I was out at lunchtime.
And the grass is green too.
I know.
I noticed that yesterday. I'm like, the grass is actually green. This is amazing.
But you still had that big snow pile by the parking garage just down the road from Emmanuel.
Somebody took a picture of that and put it on Facebook and said, "Oh, just giving you a status update on the Palatine snow pile." And, that thing is about, 20 feet tall, it seems. It's not that much, but
it's still a lot of...
it's a lot of snow.
And that will be there for quite a while.
Yeah, I was noticing the Emmanuel snow pile took a hit, but it's still substantial.
Yeah, I know I was talking with a teacher last week, and they said they went up on the hill and their foot began to sink in it. So they're like, oh, time to get off.
Yeah.
So it's melting away.
Yeah. I know the fog has been crazy. I was just telling one of our teachers, I said I was driving down Route 47, and for those who don't know, it's pretty far west in the country, like farmland area, right? And we're driving back north, and the road is a north-south road, and I look on the west side of the road, and the trees are like, they got like ice on them. And I'm like, it's like 38 degrees, and these trees have got ice on them. And then I look, and the pastures are full of snow. And I look to the right, and on the east side of the road, it's like green grass. There's no ice on the trees. I'm like, what is this, a dividing line between like the weather? It was the strangest phenomenon.
That's crazy.
I know.
But yeah, this fog has been, I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen it this foggy this long.
Yeah. I don't recall it. Yeah, the length.
I always feel like a day, maybe two.
Right.
But this was like 4 days here in the northwest
Continuous,
of Chicago for those that aren't in the area. I don't know like what the rest of the country's been dealing with, but it's just been an intense fog on some of those moments.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was in seminary in Fort Wayne, we lived 2 miles away from the kids' school. And one day we woke up, it's really foggy, and I went to school to drop the kids off, and nobody was in the parking lot. And I'm like, what? Is there no school today? And then somehow I heard word, there's a 2-hour delay because of a fog delay. And I'm like, being from Chicago, I'm like, a fog delay?
Right, we're tough.
We're tough.
We can handle some fog.
Come on. Well, if you know Fort Wayne, it's a big town, but it's surrounded by, a lot of farmland. And a lot of people live in the outskirts of the town. And so the propensity of heavy fog is more likely than me, who lives in the suburbs 2 miles away, But after the last couple of weeks of all our fog, I'm like, well, maybe we should do like a 2-hour fog delay out here in Illinois.
We can man up.
All right, we'll man up.
Like, I know, the one day when I was leaving to come here, I was like, I could barely see 4 houses down the street from my house.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's just crazy. Or coming up to 68th or the bridge on 14, I'm just like, I was almost by the stables when I could finally see the bridge.
Isn't that something? I know, that's thick stuff.
You got to be careful.
For sure,
I was driving home the one night, I had to make a right-hand turn. I was like, I'm just going to be extra cautious tonight and not make this turn because there could be a car coming that I don't notice, or maybe they don't even have their lights on for some odd reason.
Yeah. You know what I noticed about lights the other day driving in the fog? There were 3 cars ahead of me that didn't have back lights lit up. Yeah. And I'm like, how can you be driving in this stuff without headlights? Thinking you turn on your headlights, the taillights go on. 3 in a row. And so I'm like, one of them turned, and I'm like, and I went past them, and they have headlights on. Well, I think if you have it on auto, only the headlights go on and not the taillights. Oh. So I started looking at cars coming the other way, and I'd see, okay, headlights are on. I'd look at my rearview mirror. No taillight. So it's newer cars, and what I mean by newer is maybe 2015 and up. Some don't have taillights on, which is really bad.
I was going to say, do they not have blinker fluid? But yeah, I don't know. Like,
I never thought of that.
because I mean, my car, I always have it on auto.
Us too.
I thought I mean, it's not like a full, because like mine, like they kind of made it look like a C, kind of where so for GMC, but I was just like, I think that's not like the full, but I'm like, I'm still pretty sure, because otherwise, wouldn't a cop pull me over?
Well, I mean, I was getting kind of salty. I'm like, what are these people? They're not turning on their lights. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should turn mine from auto to on. So I did. I mean, I don't know if our vehicle does that. I never thought about it.
Yeah, I don't. Because I mean, I got pulled over for those watching online for driving like this with my hand by my head.
Oh, yeah.
Because the cop thought I was on my cell phone.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I get pulled over for that, I would definitely get pulled over for
no taillights.
Taillights.
I mean, that used to be the thing. Like, oh, you know why I pulled you? You don't have your taillights. Oh, there must be a short.
Well, get home and get it fixed, my friend.
Right, yeah. And like now, I don't know if it's part of the auto selection. If there's anybody in our audience who knows that answer, please let us know.
Yeah, you can put that in the comments for us.
Yeah.
Whether you see it on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever. But yeah, so that kind of will tie later to maybe a part of the conversation, that you being salty there.
Yeah.
But today we want to talk about the nuns, and not like in the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay.
We're not, I'm
not the ones that hit you over the knuckles with a ruler.
Not like Jake and Elwood Blues and the Blues Brothers when they get beat up by the penguin, as they called her.
Yeah.
But no, and this is a topic we've kind of talked about, I think, on previous, or at least at Gathering Place or in worship, where we've talked about what's known as the rise of the nuns, NONES. And that means like those that when you have to fill out on like I can't think what the thing is called, the census.
Oh, a census, yeah.
Like when you're filling out what your religious affiliation is, and they check the box saying none, that they have no religious affiliation.
Yeah, and that's a big thrust of our one. Right. Efforts here at Emmanuel, that we have at least one person in our life who might be a nun. And we want to turn, through the help of the Lord, some nuns into ones, and
right. Yeah, and I came across this article in Relevant Magazine, something I've used in the past, and it starts off by saying, the number of nuns, the religiously unaffiliated demographic comprised of atheists, agnostics, and those who say their religion is nothing in particular, has steadily been rising over the last several years. See, if I would have been a good podcast host, I would have not told you the answer to this question, but said, what do you think the percentage of nuns are based on the current research by Pew Research? Yeah.
Yeah, so 28%. And if you look at that, you might think, oh, that's not real big. But like you were pointing out when we were talking earlier, what was it? So that Pew Research
is current.
What was it?
2007.
Yeah.
It was only 16%. So like here in 2024, it says, and I don't know when they took the survey, but I would assume recently, 28% of U.S. adults categorize themselves as nuns. So 17 years ago, right when I was graduating college, it was only 16% of the people said they were nuns.
And you would think, a 12% rise over the course of 17 years, not marketable. But like you had said, well, give it another 17 years. If you have another 12% increase, now you're at 40%, which people would then take notice of. And maybe it wouldn't take 17 years to get to that 40.
It's probably increasing more
and more.
And I'm just curious how that rise looks on like a line graph, like how you can see that the slope of the increase.
Yeah.
Is it a dramatic one, or is it just a slow rise? Or is it a slow rise and then taking a bigger one?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And I'm not good enough to figure out how to map that. I guess you just have to look at all the years.
Yeah, the data points for every year.
And I don't have those here in front of me.
Yeah, so like in what you're getting at is like, okay, it could be like within the past 3 years that it went up by 10%.
Right.
As opposed to 12 over the course of 17 years.
Right. And even like that 17-year number, it's like it doesn't feel. It feels like that's a ways away.
It does.
But I'm like, think about 2007. You were just you were just finishing up your first year.
My first year. Yeah.
And I was entering in my first year of seminary that fall. Mm-hmm. That doesn't feel that long ago.
No, but then again, it does when you look back at it.
But I was like thinking, like some of my friends from seminary. It's like I've known them for 17 years. It's pushing 20 years. That I've known them.
Isn't that crazy?
And that doesn't seem that long that I would have known them. Mm-hmm. But here we are, and like even thinking, I've been here 8 years now.
Yeah.
And that's hard to believe that's been that long.
Right.
And yeah, because I realized the other day, I'm like, this is the longest I've ever worked at a given location.
Well, I was kind of the same way in business. I had a track record of being at a place for like 7 years and then moving on to another company. And so here at Emmanuel, I'm almost doubled that. So
look at you go.
Oh man, yeah.
But yeah, so it's kind of interesting that we've seen this. And as it says, it is the second largest cohort in the U.S. of like religious affiliations, only behind Christianity at 40%. So it's only a 12% difference between Christianity and nuns. And that does not seem like that big of a gap.
No, it doesn't.
Because I mean, you go probably 30 years ago, I would assume, well, it would have been at least over 50% for Christianity, because I know recently is the first time we've dipped under 50%. But I guarantee the nuns probably weren't even in the 10% range.
Right.
So you see, like, the nuns are rising and Christianity's decreasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was about a year and a half ago where that report came out in the summer that Christianity is now below 50% in America. And so here we are. According to this poll, Christianity is 40%. And yeah.
Which is, I don't know, to me it's a scary thing when you think about that.
Yeah,
like,
it really is.
What does the future hold for the church? And obviously COVID has affected when it looks to like attendance numbers when it comes to worship, that all the churches pretty much have been hit where it's been a decrease in in-person worship, an increase probably in online worship. And, we're not going to debate the whole online versus in-person, but that is a huge shift in how church is being done here in 2024.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing you're kind of noting is that, it's 40% are Christians, and it doesn't say anything about like, 40% are people who attend worship service, Bible study, or are active in their faith at a church or wherever. Because then you take that 40% of Christianity, and many aren't, would probably identify as Christian, but might not be regularly worshiping or involved in a church.
Right, because I think it was at a pastoral conference when they said, like, now good church attendance is considered once a month.
Yeah.
Which always blows my mind.
I know.
Like, you look anywhere else in life, like in school, if you got a 25% on a test, I don't think anybody would be happy with that.
No. And then let's say you go work out. If you work out once a month, well, it wouldn't be once a month. It would be
4 times a month.
4 times a month. Then you'd be like, well, I probably shouldn't even bother with this.
Right. Or you look at like baseball, that'd be hitting 250.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays that is.
Nowadays it's. Yeah.
But do you go back to like when I was a kid or you're a kid, 250?
I know.
What a horrible batting average. Mm-hmm. Or basketball, shooting 25%, whether free throws, field goal percentage, 3-point, completing 25% of your passes in football, or 25% of your field goals. We have some issues with field goals previously in this city.
Yeah, so it is an alarming thing, and as we get into some of these questions, we're going to find, like while people identify or don't identify, well, people who identify as nuns may have some spiritual leanings on various aspects of faith, right?
Because it says here, in fact, while the nuns does include many non-believers, 70% say they believe in God or another higher power, and 63% say they believe in spiritual forces beyond the natural world. So there's even saying these nuns, over half of them in both cases, believe in some sort of supernatural power or religious thing or a God, yet they don't affiliate with, and that just doesn't make sense to me. I can't.
So is that like people recognizing, well, there's got to be a higher power that is overseeing life here on earth. But while I believe there would be a higher power, they're not worshiping their higher power, or they're not ascribing the values of their life to said higher power.
Right, like maybe as you're talking, remind me, like in my elective today, we were watching it. Yesterday, and we talked more today about. We watched an episode of The Simpsons where Bart's about to fail the 4th grade, and unless he passes his test, and he doesn't study for it, of course, but then he prays to God, saying, "God," well, he says, "Well, old timer," and he's like, please don't.
Well, you could call God Ancient of Days,
right? So that's the modern version.
The modern
even
version.
though the episode's from 1990.
Okay,
but and he was like, "Let there be some way. Teacher strike, snow, power outage. Let there be no school tomorrow." And then you start seeing they pan out from the house, and you see a snowflake, and then boom, and it becomes a snow day.
Yeah.
And it was one of those in the one book I have that talks about that episode in a Bible study. It's like, was that a miracle or a divine coincidence? And so we had that discussion, and I wonder if that comes when you have something that seems as a miracle, because to me that would be a divine coincidence. It's not like God's like, since that young fellow prayed, I'm going to give him a snow day. And they kind of started that idea of like a miracle or just something I shared about. And I feel like I might have done it on a podcast or gathering when I was driving. Maybe I didn't, but I was coming here and I was running behind because I couldn't find something. I think I was looking for my buddy the elf hat, and I couldn't find it, so I was running behind. And then as I was driving here on 14, just after I think 68, the bridge there, I saw a car accident. It had to have just happened because there was no police, no ambulances.
Right.
And it was one of those was God looking out for me, of making me a little more delayed, so I wouldn't have been involved. And I was like, is that a miracle? And the kid's like, well, that's not a miracle. It's not a suspect. I was like, I don't know. I think it could have been seen as if God did something to delay what my plan was for that day.
Right. Yeah. That kind of gets into a lot of thoughts, especially, as people are not affiliating or ascribing to Christianity. Some, as you say, who are identifying in either category, maybe that they're Christian or that they're a nun, may hold values of a Christian, like be kind to others, serve others, help those in need, kind of thing.
If you look at the 10 Commandments outside of the first 3, what person, Christian or not, would say it's bad to honor your father and mother?
Right.
It's bad to not commit murder. It's bad to not commit adultery. It's bad to not steal. Just a covet, to bear false witness.
And I've always said I think God has hardwired, at least those commandments that relate to how to, like the moral code toward others. People, as you say, would say, well, of course I'm going to, for the most part, honor my parents, or I would never kill anyone or think about it or those kinds of things. So to me, it's always like, I think God hardwired that in us, and everybody's got that. Well, not everybody, I suppose, right? Not everybody, but a majority of moral people
who tell there's a right or wrong.
It's like their moral compass, right? But then there's the short circuitry between, I think God also hardwired the first table of the commandments on us, but yet there must be a short circuit, which I guess you could call sin or just unbelief, that it's not activated in people. So it is an interesting thing that people who don't believe are still trying to be, good people in life and helpful and joyful and, that kind of thing, embracing the life we've been given, but yet they don't ascribe it to a thankful living to God. Yeah.
And there's some other questions that it's asking about what people believe, and most religious nuns believe in God or some higher power. Most don't believe in heaven or hell. So that's what gets me, is that 36% of the people don't believe in heaven, but 36% believe in heaven, while 61% don't believe in heaven. And then when it comes to hell, 29% believe in hell, 69% believe that there is no hell.
Yeah, we were looking originally at the other way of what they believe in, like, the 36 believe in heaven, 29 believe in hell. And then and we were kind of commenting on that, but it just hit me like, for those who don't believe, they ascribe more percentage to that there is an existence of a hell over a heaven.
That is an interesting.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay.
But like, I don't know. That just like, why would you want to live a life where you're like, this is it. When my time's up here, that's it.
Yeah. Some people are very matter of fact. It's like, this is what we got. This is it. And this is what we see. Someone dies, they're gone. But
to me, maybe because it's that Christian upbringing, I'm like, but where's the comfort in that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to live my life thinking that's the last time I'm going to see that person forever.
Yeah.
Even if that forever, as I would understand, is however long I have on this earth, but there's no comfort in that.
No. And, that's where some of your atheists believe that, religion is just made up to make people feel good about such things, and that they're kind of just a poor, pitiful people that, this is how they navigate through things like loss, and they just don't deal with it fully. But that's why they call it the good news of our salvation. And, Christ gave us our life continues, right? And it's kind of funny how, like, in that whole like life continues, how a lot of people who are not Christian might believe like, oh, well, the spirit of my loved one continues to live on. And then you hear talk about, oh, they're an angel, or just they'll come and visit me in a different form. Or then you kind of get into kind of reincarnation kind of talk and things like that. But they won't, but they'll gravitate and say, well, there is no heaven, or something. So yeah, it's a big alphabet soup out there.
Right, and then, like, just thinking, like, I was reminded, especially when we were looking at the other side, and I guess I didn't quite look at, but I always think of a clip I use in confirmation of Francis Chan where he's talking about, like, the promises of God, where we love to talk about the promises that are positive, like we'll be in heaven, and sometimes we stop there, and we don't go that he is vengeful. He will punish them to the third and fourth generation. And he tells us, it's funny, he's talking about his kids, and he's just like, my daughter comes down and she's complaining about the food. I was like, I know mom's food's not good, but we don't complain about that.
Yeah.
If you do, there's going to be consequences.
Right.
And it's like, she complains. Okay, you're eating oatmeal every day for the next week. That's your punishment. And I made her do it.
Yeah. That's
how he says. And then he's like, then she's grumpy in the morning. I get it, but you don't have to be grumpy. She was grumpy, so I said, okay, every day this week, you're getting up 1 hour earlier, you're weeding the garden. He's like, I made her do it. He's like, you have these parents like, don't do that. And then they start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and he's like, no, he's like, I'm following what I said.
Right.
And that's exactly what God does when it comes to this heaven and hell. He says there's hell. We need to listen to him. That is, we believe him on his good promises. Why don't we believe him on those ones? And that's, to me, and I guess I missed that when I was kind of initially looking at this, is the nuns that are the heaven and hell idea.
Yeah.
But I still, like, if you believe, well, I guess because some do believe in God, but I'm like, if you don't really believe in that, why would you believe there is a heaven or hell?
Right.
Where are you getting that basis? Because if you're not really affiliated with any, are you really looking at the Bible?
Yeah, it's good questions. And, that's the scary thing, like, as you kind of were alluding to earlier, that the increase of nuns is rapidly on the incline. And so what does that say about presently now, the people who fall into these categories? We could say, well, it's the younger people or people younger than them. So now you're talking about generations, right? Like you had said before. So it's like generations are now falling away from belief in God or participating in a faith aspect of that, of worshiping him and serving him. That will have a lasting impact on our world. And how do people go through life circumstances, and when they, suffer loss of any kind, job, health, a loved one, those kinds of things. And, sometimes as a believer, when there's hard times that fall on us, I don't know about you, but I've prayed, oh Lord, you can do this, because I know that I have someone that I love who is doubtful about your existence or your interaction with them in their life. And so if you could turn this situation into something that shows like you answered their prayers in a positive way, like, I don't know, find them a new job right away, help them pass an enormous test or something, or help them through financial problems or relational problems, so that they would ascribe or attribute this positive trajectory, like, oh, I prayed and I see it and it happened. So God must be there. He must have heard me. And so that's where I would be like, Lord, you can do this, please, Lord. And invariably, there are times, I'm sure he says yes, but there's a lot of times where it doesn't work out the way they pray. And, as a believer, and that they're kind of just hanging on the precipice of faith, you're like, oh, Lord, why?
Tipping it in the wrong
way. And those are tough questions, but but we all know as Christians in the valley of struggle, God is existing, but I don't know.
But even as you're talking, my mind went to Judges chapter 2, verses 10 through 12. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. So it shows there in one generation, people can completely lose out on knowing God. And so we're getting to that point again.
Yeah, I know. The other week we talked a lot about Eli and Samuel, and how Eli was he was a prophet, and it said the word of the Lord was rare in those days. And then you look at like Eli's sons, Phinehas and Hophni or something like that.
Sure.
And they were just
Bad
they
people.
were mocking God in the way that they lived their lives. And God called them out on it, called Eli, as a father. And, it's like we could be, as you say, like we are headed that way.
And I mean, we've talked about this, like the fact that we see a lot more biblical illiteracy of people not knowing what's in the Bible.
Yeah, among Christians.
Right. And it's just like, if they don't know,
who's gonna know?
Right. So if we're already kind of becoming biblically literate, it's not important to us, or even that idea of like going to worship 25% of the time is acceptable. If that's what's acceptable now, and then this generation is teaching their kids, 25% is okay, they're probably going to have half that. So 12% of the time. So what, maybe once every other month you're attending worship?
Yeah.
And it's a slow decline, and, you might not realize it.
Well, and, we're talking about attending worship, Bible study. Those are like, some people might say, well, those are organizational things. Like, is organizational right? Or
Institutional.
Institutional, thank you. Institutional things. I don't believe in the institution. I'm like, I've seen how other Christians create or treat other Christians.
Right.
They're not kind. And like, so that causes people to say, I don't need that in my life. I'm going to go just do what I want to do.
I believe I can worship God my own way.
Exactly. I can just, whenever I need to pray to God, I will. I'll appreciate this about him or his creation or the people he gave in my life, but I'm not going to go for that institutional stuff.
Right.
And I think that's where, I think that's a big part of the decline is, seems like, younger generations are not about the institutional aspect.
And to me, it reminds me, once again, of a Francis Chan, like that lukewarm Christian, which Scripture says, I spit you out because you're lukewarm.
Right.
And that, what you're talking about, also speaks to what they found in their polls, where it says 2/3 of nuns say they don't want to associate with religion because they question a lot of religious teachings. Additionally, many respondents claim that the negative experience was with religion institutions, 47%, or people, 30%, impacted their decision not to associate with any religion. So 77% of the people have had a bad interaction with either somebody at a church or a church.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but as a pastor, I never want to be the reason why somebody leaves a church because of something I've said or done.
Right. I know
I'm going to mess up, but I hope I never get to that point where somebody's like, I'm not coming because of what Donald did.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. That's a heavy load, and but honestly, it
happens more than it should.
Right, and it could and probably will happen somewhere along the way in our lives. But that's why you hope people understand our heart or our.
And that's what I was getting earlier when you said, you're getting salty about where, our actions. And we were talking about this, I think, after church the other day about having like stickers or car decals that say, I belong to such and such a church.
Yeah.
And what type of example does it show when we show a bit of road rage? When we have like Emmanuel Lutheran Church or Emmanuel Lutheran School on the back of our car, yet there we are like shaking our fists and yelling. Is that a church you'd want to go to if that's what their people are doing on the road?
That's what they're going to zone in on. Like, that's what people over there do?
Well, I mean, it's like when you see like a church where like the leader of the church falls into a big sin. That's what makes the headline.
Yes.
Is pastor of so-and-so church guilty of blah, 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 blah.
Well, and I think that I can't remember. I probably told you that story when I was coming out of Barrington and someone was honking at me to make a right turn, and the light was green, but there was this elderly lady walking with a walker in the crosswalk, and I thought, okay, the light is green, but I'm not going to blow this lady over by I didn't even want to go one lane behind her because I didn't want to scare her and knock her down, and I'm getting honked at like crazy behind me. So I let her get off onto the sidewalk, and then I go to the outer lane, and then the person behind me zooms right by in the middle or the lane on the right, and they give me the whole stink eye look, and I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. And then I noticed their bumper sticker said tolerance, and I thought, oh, isn't that something?
Well, I mean, yeah, and I shared that thing with you, but like a couple of weeks ago, I was coming into Emmanuel in the morning, and there I am turning onto Wood Street, and a car is going the wrong way down Wood Street.
Yeah, you did say that.
And as I make the turn, I'm trying to look in there, giving that like baby stick out, like, do I know this person? And it was like funny today. I was talking to a teacher up in their middle school, and their all room faces that road, and she was like, there's another car going the wrong way down that road. It happens all the time. But at least in that case, I felt, this is my justified self being like, well, they're doing something wrong. I'm doing the right, so I'm allowed to give them the stink eye. But it's that, like, if that person would have known me, because I don't recognize, they could be like, really? The pastor's staring me down because
I got mixed up on the road,
well, there are signs that say which way to go.
Yeah, there's plenty of signs.
So sorry for any of those listeners that have gone the wrong way down that road as I'm critiquing. Or like the one that gets me annoyed is at the Chick-fil-A in Deer Park, people going up the wrong way up the driving lane because you can only go one way, and they're always coming up that way. And I'm just like, I'm going to get hit one of these times. Wow. And it's not my fault. Yeah. It's just because somebody can't read. So see, that's where I get a little salty and things like that. It's like, there's a sign. Follow the arrow.
I know. But so our example matters. And, how we might be frustrated with someone in our church body, or, how, do we talk about that person outside of church circles? And, what if someone is not a follower of God and they hear you kind of talk that way about a fellow believer in Christ? I mean, that says a lot, And
then they say, okay, this person gossips about somebody that they're a brother and sister in Christ with. What are they saying about me? Why do I want to belong to a place where there's gossiping? I don't need to go to a church to be involved with that. I can just go anywhere else. And
aren't you supposed to go there to feel good coming out? And it doesn't seem to be working, and we're all human, right? And, that's where, that element of sin just creeps into all of us. But for us as believers, as the rise of nuns continues at a pretty good clip, we have to really be mindful of our witness, and that's not anything new. I mean, that's scriptural, so
our witness is the way we act, the way we speak, and even being engaged with God's word ourselves so that we can be equipped and remind ourselves of how to live our life and be able to share when the time comes so that those nuns hopefully can become a one through the work of the Holy Spirit.
Right. Yeah, and to be there for them in, when they do kind of because invariably, maybe some nuns will come to a difficult crossroad in their life, and they might look to you as a person of faith and say, I need, you seem to navigate these waters in a different way, and there's something about you that I want to possess. And so there's a window, right, to really acknowledge God's goodness and His graciousness and His love, even when, you pray and the answer goes the other way. And so that is a great opportunity to help someone who, when they're hurting, maybe find their way back to God.
Right. And that's what this is all about, is we want to see that number of nuns decrease, and the more that know Jesus as their Lord and Savior.
Yeah. That's why sharing the gospel is so incredibly important.
Right. So, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this week, and God's blessings.
PD and PDubs, unscripted.